Get up here, baby. Oh, that feels good. Yeah, just snuggle into my arms like that. Ooh. How was your day? Long. Yeah, yeah, I get that. Also, 9 classes with a bunch of 13-year-olds can also feel pretty long. Do you want to talk about it? You sure? Do you want to go to bed? Or you just want to hear me talk about my day, huh? Oh, hey, look. Looks like you're not the only one who wants snuggles. Look at Mr. Snuggles here. Okay. I can cuddle both of you, my girlfriend and my cat. What about you? You think you can hear me talk about my day? Yeah? Okay, I'm gonna take those purrs to mean yes. Yes, today was that day. I mean, I love being a creative writing teacher, but them letting me teach history of Batman. Oh, man. I mean, I just get to geek out on something that I can't geek out on at home. I mean, like, you wouldn't have any interest in all the things that I get to just sort of really go into detail. No, baby, you don't have to say that. Just because we're together doesn't mean you have to be interested in everything I'm interested in. Well, we would talk about, like the Batcave and his butler and how he came into being and how many Robins there were. And, oh, yeah, there's so many Robins. No, 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 there's not one Robin. No, no, no. You sure you want me to tell you about this? I mean, because if I start. Okay, okay. So, oh man, I can't believe you're letting me do this. Okay, okay, I'll start. So, the first Robin, the Robin that you probably think of whenever it's Batman and Robin, his name's Dick Grayson. And he's now Nightwing. Wait, let me not get ahead of myself. He was an acrobat with his parents. They were called the Flying Graysons. And somebody murdered his parents the night of a circus, and Bruce Wayne, Batman, was at the circus. And he sort of adopted Dick Grayson. He became his Bruce Wayne's ward because Bruce Wayne's a billionaire. And because they're both orphans and Dick Grayson wanted revenge on whoever murdered his parents, Batman kind of took him under his wing and taught him how to fight for justice. And they have this really classic panel of making him swear an oath. A panel. Oh, it's like a spread of drawings. It's basically just an illustration. And they have this candle out, and they always have flashbacks to it. It's iconic. And he just makes him swear that he'll always protect the weak, that he'll never use guns, that he won't murder anybody. And so that's the classic Batman and Robin. Now I think he's about 10 years old when he starts. Maybe he trains for a year. But yeah, he's a young Robin. Then the next Robin, so what happens is Dick Grayson eventually he goes off to college. He's still Robin. He runs the Teen Titans, which is like this group of other superheroes that also are kind of sidekicks to Wonder Woman and Superman and Aquaman and all this stuff. And he goes off to college, and that already starts to kind of create a rift between him and Batman. And then he comes back, and he gets shot in the shoulder by the Joker during a fight. And this makes Batman kind of fire him as Robin. He's like too scared. He kind of freaks out. He's like, you shouldn't be Robin. And Robin's pissed. He's like, yo, what are you talking about? Like, I am Robin. So then also, I should say that story isn't usually referenced. Like, I don't know why people often decide to choose that's, or forget that that's why he eventually left being Robin. But anyway, now he's like, I'm a grown man. I can do whatever I want. And he's like, I need to do something that's not Robin, because it's always going to be Batman and Robin. I'll never be Robin by myself. So what am I going to become? It's at this time that he's sort of like having this coming of age moment, and he's visited by Superman. And Superman tells him about these two heroes from Krypton called Nightwing and Flamebird. And that inspires him to take on the moniker of Nightwing. And he feels like it's so perfect because it's a combination of two of his greatest mentors, Batman and Superman. And it has the darkness, has the strength, but it also has hope. So he becomes Nightwing. And he leads the Teen Titans. And he's probably like one of the most loved characters in all of comics. He also hooked up with Batgirl. I think currently him and Batgirl are like in a very strong relationship. Now, Nightwing comes back. He hasn't been to Gotham in a while. He's doing his thing with the Teen Titans. He's grown up, separated from Bruce. There's still some tension between them because, the whole being fired as Robin thing. And he comes back, and would you believe there's another Robin? And Dick is so upset. He's like, what are you talking about? And basically, Batman found some kid stealing the hubcaps off of the Batmobile. And kind of like, again, orphan. Or I think maybe his dad was like a deadbeat. His dad might have actually been involved in some crime stuff. And this Robin had way more of a tougher upbringing. And Batman took him on and made him the next Robin, trained him. And there's this great comic I found randomly on the street one time where it was Dick coming back for the first time, and he basically just like rails into Batman. He's like, what are you doing? Like, why would you put this kid in danger? Like, I at least had acrobat training and da-da-da-da-da. And at first Batman's like, I missed you, and da-da-da, and Dick is like, yeah, right. Like, I want the real truth. And I forget what the real truth ended up being, but man, it was such a good, really dramatic fight. Anyway, so that Robin, eventually Dick became like an older brother to him and, kind of a mentor. That was Jason Todd. Now, Jason Todd, he wasn't around very long as Robin, but I think he was about 13. And he was always kind of off doing his own thing. He was just so angry. And then he found out, I think it was in this comic book called Death of the Family, Death in the Family. And he kind of found out that his mom was alive. and she was working for the Joker. Now the Joker is like a super dangerous man. And Batman was like, you stay away from whatever's going on and I will fix this. Well, obviously Jason doesn't do that, and they get separated. He's going off looking for his mother on his own, and he finds her in this warehouse, and Joker comes out with his henchmen, and it's really bad. Jason gets tied up with his mom, and Joker puts a bomb in the building and with his mother. Jason taught Robin with his mother, and Batman doesn't get there in time, and he holds Jason in his arms as he's dying. And now Batman full on wants to kill the Joker, and Superman kind of comes and talks him out of it. So that was extremely rough on Batman, obviously. And he basically swore off Robin's. And then there's Timothy Drake. Now, a lot of people would argue that he was the best Robin. I mean, once you get them all really talking about it, everybody knows Dick Grayson's the best Robin. But Tim is the Robin that most people grew up on. You know, he was the Robin in, I think in like the 90s and the 2000s pretty much. So anyway, basically there's this kid who's like been obsessed. He's like a I guess like a fan. And he saw Batman was being a little bit ruthless and sloppy, and he knew that Batman needed a Robin. That Batman had a darkness to him, and he needed a Robin to sort of balance that out with some hope. And so he goes and finds Dick Grayson to try to convince him to be Robin again. And Dick Grayson's like, dude, like I've moved completely past that. I'm Nightwing. That's never going to happen again. Then there's this whole thing with Two-Face. And basically, like, Batman and Nightwing get trapped. And, he had found Batman already, and Batman's like, leave me alone. But Tim had already been training in martial arts, and he sees the costume because he had discovered both of their identities also. So he had been training himself as a detective, and he had been training himself as a martial artist. And he puts on the Robin costume, and somehow he saves Batman and Nightwing from Two-Face. Now, it wasn't Tim's plan to be like, hey, let me be your new Robin. But I think it was Nightwing that kind of pushed for it. And he was Robin for the longest out of any of them. Started at 13, and man, he was such a good Robin. He still is Robin, but he's, there's actually more than one Robin now, so that's all kind of, like when you think of him as like the classic partner to Batman, he was so awesome. And he was the first Robin to have long pants, not the little pixie shorts. And he had this cool little bow staff. Anyway. He wasn't an orphan at first. And then, man, there was this comic arc called Identity Crisis. And his mom had already passed. But basically, like, someone was figuring out the superhero secret identities. And his dad calls Robin while he's in the Batmobile with Batman, and he's like, someone's here. And it's so heartbreaking. They're like racing to get there, and they're like just too late. So then they're also orphans now. Remember the second Robin, Jason Todd? During one of the most classic Batman stories ever called Hush, Batman is encountered by this foe that is saying he is an adult Jason Todd. And it's scaring the mess out of him, but at the end of the fight, you realize it's Clayface pretending to be Jason Todd, who probably was mimicking Nightwing. But then you find out, I think years later, a couple years later, that Jason Todd had actually come back from the dead and encountered Hush. And Clayface was imitating him. He had come back from the dead because of some like weird thing that was going on that I won't even explain, because that's just like opening a whole other can of worms. But he actually wakes up 6 months after he died, and Talia al Ghul finds him and throws him in the Lazarus pit, because he doesn't come back fully sort of remembering everything. But he's thrown into the Lazarus pit, which is what Ra's al Ghul uses to sort of be eternally youthful. Every time he gets old, he goes into the Lazarus pit, comes out younger. So Jason Todd comes out of the Lazarus pit and he remembers everything, and he's also like, he's even angrier than he used to be. And he comes out and he realizes that Batman never avenged him, that the Joker's still alive. So now he's got this big, vengeful vendetta. And he basically trains himself the same way Batman trained himself. He just follows the roadmap for what Batman did and becomes just as lethal as Batman, and intelligent and incredible, and he takes on the moniker of the Red Hood, because the Joker, before he became the Joker, ran this gang called the Red Hood Gang. And so, yeah, then he's got this whole great story arc called Under the Red Hood, and Batman has to deal with the fact that Jason Todd is alive. And he's a villain for a while. For a long time, he's a villain, then he's sort of an anti-hero, but fans just really like him as a hero, and he's folded into the Bat family. It's just a regular member and shows up when Batman needs help, but there's still always conflict. There's still, people don't trust him. People are constantly like, nah, Jason killed somebody, or because he's caused so much damage in the past that people don't trust him, and he's always willing to go further than other people. And then the fact that people don't trust him pisses him off even more. Okay, anyway, let's get to the next Robin. So the next Robin, and this Robin has been Robin now for, oh my God, he's almost been Robin for like 20 years. Not in the comics, but this is Damian Wayne. So basically, there was this story where Talia al Ghul and Batman made love, and Grant Morrison, who was started writing for Batman, made it so that she had a kid. And I think it was partly because it was on purpose. She wanted to have a son of Batman to train in the League of Assassins, so that to kind of, I don't know, be the new heir or something. And so he shows up at 10 years old, lethal. And he's even crazier than Jason Todd. I mean, he won't do anything anybody says. I mean, he's just like a jerk. And then eventually Batman's like, you got to stay with me. And And I've just got to like protect you and look out for you, because if Talia keeps you, like, you're just going to be a villain. Then during this time, Batman dies. How does he die again? Oh, he dies in Final Crisis. Darkseid shoots some beams through him, and then you find out he's like not really dead, blah, blah, blah. But during that time, Dick Grayson, Nightwing, if you remember, he had become Batman, and he gives the title of Robin to Damian. Takes it from Tim. He's like, Tim, I gotta make Damian Robin. Like, I gotta do this. I gotta look out for this kid. So now Tim is pissed because he's already grieving his stepdad. And now this punk kid got his title as Robin. So he goes off. He takes the title of Red Robin, which I'm not even going to explain. How are you doing with this so far? I know I've been geeking it. Baby? Okay, yeah, you probably fell asleep a long time ago. That's okay. If you found any of that interesting, I'm more happy to go into that tomorrow. Or not, if you don't. I've actually got a little sleepy myself. Alright, baby. We can sleep a few minutes here, and then I'm gonna carry you upstairs so you can get a good night's sleep in bed. I love you, baby.